Alright, our goal in life is to beat our last playthrough. Yeah, one thing I greatly appreciate Rare with is the fact that they seemed to try to push the Super Nintendo and really even the Nintendo 64 in the next console generation to its absolute limits. As I'm busy ROM hacking Super Mario World, I think to myself, seeing all of the limitations, how in the world are things possible that were accomplished in the Donkey Kong Country games? And then I love when we get to the end of the level, look at that. It changes to nighttime. So beautiful, so seamless. We have a beautiful demonstration of background lighting. The rain, you might guess, is of course layer 3 on top of that. We can see the lightning effect is actually still going on because it's being generated via HDMI. The interesting thing is, in Donkey Kong Country 1 and 3, we have a duality of characters, one being a very strong character, and then a more agile character. The interesting thing is, in DKC 2, which of course I'm the most used to, and is my favorite, has Diddy and Dixie, which are basically two agile characters. So I definitely often switch to Diddy in this original, just by virtue of his agile style. I think I'm a little bit better skilled with. No playthrough would be complete without a few cranky lines. "You big ape, I could hear you coming from miles away." "Okay, I'll do the level for you." "Nah, only kidding." "Come back to the master for more advice, huh? So you're back again. I knew a punk kid like you couldn't do the job." I love it. I love this game so much. Honestly though, it's the fact that I love Rareware until I don't. I think I have a love-hate relationship with Rare. Sometimes I love them, and then sometimes I want to punch their developers in the face. So I love the cave tile set. It's absolutely beautiful. In Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, when you find a bonus room, you actually have to complete it as well and collect something. Whereas in the original game, the only thing you actually have to do is get to and reach a bonus room, and then it basically counts as far as reached. Coral Capers. So here's the first water level, and perhaps one of the most remixed video game tunes from the entire Donkey Kong franchise, Aquatic Ambience. One thing that always amazed me, I have no idea how Rareware did it, but they seemed to have a ridiculous amount of amazingly talented music composers. Those shark sprites are some of the most beautiful sprites in the game. With modern video games, one can basically invest an infinite amount of resources for music. I believe Zelda Twilight Princess, after composing its score, had a live orchestra actually craft it. The Zelda Twilight Princess soundtrack sounds orchestrated, well, because it is. But one thing I think that so many modern video games miss these days is the fact that there's no more melody to them. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful music, it accomplishes its purpose, but as soon as you're done playing the video game, there's no jingle running through your head. Whereas if you look at this one, here's the Jungle Japes melody. It's so iconic to the entire franchise. Another amazing variation to the caves was the use of the minecart, which again has become a staple in the Donkey Kong franchise. Minecart carnage, baby, here we go. Yeah, so this right here, this is classic DKC. It's hard for me to become excited for modern day video games just by virtue of, honestly, I don't have a lot of time to play them even if I wanted to. So instead I just revert back to games I already know are fun and games I've played a million times. I can't explain how excited I was when I saw in Donkey Kong 64 it teased that, yes indeed, there is a minecart level or section in it. I love the temper tantrum Diddy throws. One thing I absolutely have to praise Rareware for is they always had no shortage of ideas. So here, the stop-go station. So here's a tile set that, you know, maybe makes, I would say, the least amount of sense, the temple ruins. But at the same time, you can't deny it certainly is beautiful. Here's an interesting thing, because Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2, we can only travel world to world if we use funky flights. Well, what happens if we go to a new world? We can't get back to any previous worlds or levels unless we get far enough, get to the funky flights. And not only that, we also have to get far enough to get to another candy save point to even save our game. Exceptionally beautiful graphics on this one. One cool stylistic decision, I love this arrow because it really signifies you're almost at the exit. So when it comes to later in the game and incredibly difficult levels, when you finally say reach the almost there sign, it gives you that little bit of juice and momentum to say, hey, I can beat this level. Yeah, basically, how could somebody not love all of this fast-paced platforming action like this? Adding originality because instead of, Mario jumping, so to speak, we have to fire ourselves out of these cannons at just the right time. One thing I've always loved about all of the Donkey Kong Country games is how fluid all of the controls are. I sit there and play a game my niece and nephew made on Mario Maker 2 and whine and complain about how vastly different the physics is with Mario, and the jumps, the floatiness in the air, the ice physics, how much he slides on the ground, etc. Mario Maker 2 is evidently quite different than Mario Maker 1 even, and every other 2D Mario game out there has, different physics. It has a different feel. It takes a little bit of getting used to. And yet, when it comes to these original trilogy Donkey Kong games, it feels intuitively correct. So I love this level because it's like a chaser level. We're getting chased by this giant hamster wheel, except, it's not a hamster wheel, and it's, not a hamster either. I would certainly not label Donkey Kong Country as Kaizo difficulty in any way, but I'm just saying as beautiful as it is to complete Kaizo levels and as beautiful it is to watch the completion clears, and as satisfying as that feels, honestly, Donkey Kong Country, in a real sense, I think is so fluid that you have that same sort of gratification as Kaizo levels. And if you noticed here, I think might even have an advantage over Super Mario World as far as how the vertical screen scroll executes. In Mario, you basically don't get any vertical scroll unless Mario lands on some platform and then it will scroll up. But here you see, we don't have to get to the top before it scrolls up. It's knowing, but the second we go up, the camera goes up. So notice we had to fight all the way through all of those levels before we could even save. But if you're out there making a ROM hack, don't do this. So nice of Rareware to just make a little auto level that we can play. Notice that beautiful gradient background change to this beautiful sunset coloration. That's one thing that really irritates me about the hard coding of Super Mario World. You can't necessarily just do that easily. Why is that the case? Because when you enter into a level from the overworld in Super Mario World, basically all of that time, the game is loading everything it needs to. The graphics into the RAM, the music into the ARAM, and even the color palette into the palette information. The Super Nintendo can dynamically change color palettes, as you see here. But if you're making a Super Mario World ROM hack, you gotta work around all of the lovely hard-coded stuff. Yeah, another nice look at these shark sprites. So beautifully textured. This is obviously, yes, a 3D model smashed down to two-dimensional sprites that only can contain 15 different colors. Yes, 16, but of course one of those is used for transparency. Gorilla Glacier. The interesting thing, DKC 1 and 3 have an entire world dedicated to ice. In Donkey Kong Country 2, there's no such thing as an entire ice world, although there's ice levels throughout the game. Fast forward to Tropical Freeze, and again, we have the entire world, last world, dedicated to ice. So we finally get to see, I think this is actually our second to last new tile set. Ah yes, ice caves are also a very beautiful tile set. So if I'm running on the ice and I stop, look how far Diddy goes. Basically, this is like Mario Maker. Speaking of ice caves, you want to check out a beautiful song? Look up Donkey Kong 64 Crystal Caves. I love Croctopus Chase because A, we get a little bit of a palette difference, but we also get to see the Croctopus in a resting state. Which, man, look at how beautiful this is. Yeah, honestly, I could just listen to this musical track for hours, which is almost true of not only any Donkey Kong Country song or music, but really so many Super Nintendo games. Honestly, so many old retro games. It's a great tragedy that more modern video games just don't seem to have that same talent level If you know of any modern day video games that have a great soundtrack, let me know. I'd love to listen to them. I'm certainly not above listening to soundtracks of games I've never played before. In fact, I've listened to a great many number of soundtracks to games that I've never played before. Yeah, Torchlight Trouble is interesting because we have kind of like that disco ball idea, except this time with an animal buddy, Squawks. I need a sultry female voice to read Candy Kong's lines, honestly.
Hi, what's your name? That sounds so interesting. Why don't you tell me more? Are you lost, baby boy?
Ah yes, the Creme Croc Industries. So we have one final tile set to enjoy, and in my opinion, my favorite musical track in this game is the Fear Factory. So, we're in a bonus room, but if we select a banana for that trick, guess what? There's a bonus room inside of the bonus room. Bonus roomception. See what I mean? Just beautiful, beautiful track. Reach the exit just as we're getting to the end of the song. Alright, so I would argue that up to this point, basically, we've gotten to see all of the graphics other than the final boss of this game that this game has to offer. Now, of course, we still have some nice original ideas. Alright, so with Elevator Antics, we have basically the same tile set, some good rope action, but then we have this brand new play experience of these up and down elevators, which again breathes more originality into the already existing game so far. Poison Pond is definitely my least favorite level of the game, but the thing is, again, I can't complain about its looks. We have Layer 3, the Fog, definitely difficult water level. I think honestly this is probably the most difficult water level in the game. Soft hands, Fulton, soft hands. Oh my goodness, yes, no, yes! This section requires a little bit of Dino Ricky level dodging skills as these fish come like shooting them 100 miles an hour. Look at some of these. Yeah, this is just awesome platforming action right there. This whole game, honestly, this whole trilogy. In Blackout Basement, we get to see the level for a split second, and then it blacks out for a split second. And then we see it for a split second, and then it blacks out. But I love the challenge, because it's fun to do fast. Like, yeah, you can take your time and take like 10 hours to do this level, but I love going fast into this level, because it kind of tests your memory a little bit as far as what you just saw on the screen, and then you just keep playing. And then there was one more world to go, but see, here is what I find sad about this game, because I can handle the rest of the first 5 worlds, but by the time we get to World 6, I feel like they've used all of their tile sets, except for, of course, the final boss upcoming, but really, this last world seems the most kind of almost redundant to me. And at the same time, like, again, cool ideas though. It might be the case that a lot of people actually made that criticism, and of course, it is fixed in subsequent Donkey Kong Country games. Rambi, no. Donkey, no. Diddy, no. Alright, I love this section because we can actually get a life by hitting or jumping on enough consecutive enemies. You thought that was just a thing in Mario? Well, ka-ching. What? Did anyone see that armadillo? It like shot up straight into the sky. Get a slow-mo replay on that. Almost there. Bam. Alright, point number 1. The game kind of misleads you to believe, oh, we've got one more world, but this is a single boss battle. In fact, it's the final boss. Second, it's called Gangplank Galleon, which is actually exactly where the first game begins. The first world is Gangplank Galleon. So I'm very curious if once they finally got to this and defined the final boss, K. Rool, to be a pirate, is that what gave them idea to make an entire game, DKC2, pirate themed? I don't know. We get to finally enjoy our last tile set of the game, and one of the most beautiful little sea shanty jingles as well. Hey, and look at this. Rareware. Where did you get this idea to have fake credits? So we get to have a little short-lived victory here. I love it, honestly. It's almost as if they influenced later Rareware games to have even more fake credits. Don't party just yet. Alright, one more cycle of 3 and... that is all she wrote. Well done, Donkey, my boy. Who'd have thought a young whippersnapper like you could have beaten that bunch of no-good Kremlins? You've made an old man proud. If I had been playing, I'd have found everything. I'm sure there must be some bonus rooms you haven't found. I think I like Donkey Kong Country 2 final credits song the best out of the 3, but honestly, this on its own is a great musical track. So the moral of the story is, if you have a Nintendo Switch, if you have access to Switch Online, I would highly recommend Donkey Kong Country. In fact, so many other classic games out there that you can have at your fingertips just by having that Nintendo Online subscription. But remember, no save states. Is it my turn yet? Surely it's me next. Ta-da, Cranky Kong. I did this using 1 life. And I took less than an hour. Alright, we can't all be Billy Mitchell caliber video game players. I'm sorry. But the real question is, did Cranky Kong use MAME? Question number 2, does Cranky Kong always have a plan? Does Cranky Kong always wear an American tie? We didn't hit the same percentage, but we beat our time. So there is the time to beat, and would you look at that, 128. Has anybody ever seen that number anywhere before? As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again at Great Games Before Your Time.